Hello everyone, I'm back again with another tier list. In this case, this is a power ranking tier list. We're going to rank just how strong these characters are. Now the tiers are unknown, so these are characters who right now we don't actually know how strong they are. Obviously in future chapters we may figure it out, but for now they're an unknown. Weak is pretty straightforward, they're not very weak, if they're an enemy. Their attacks aren't very strong or don't deal that much damage or easy to dodge. Okay, which is again straightforward. They're alright. Strong, some enemies who might give you a hard time, as well as like strong player characters too, because I will also be going over the player characters. And dangerous for just, those high level threats. So, alright, before I get into the video, very briefly, I want to mention that I do have a Kickstarter that's running. It's only got 8 days left to go. Goal's $100, and I'm at 69. So, a copy of this one-page tabletop game that I'm making only cost $1. So if you're inclined, every dollar helps. And so that plugging out of the way, I'm gonna get right into the video. All right, so we're actually gonna start with Chris. I'm actually gonna put Chris in strong. Chris is a complicated case. So Chris, the character, when we as the player are not controlling Chris is shown to be very, very strong, right? So in chapter 4, Chris very accurately hits the soul with a hockey puck with perfect accuracy. And there are also other moments where Chris is shown to be incredibly skilled when the player's not in control. Unfortunately, we have to be in control to play the game. And so in a sense, we actually kind of Chris by themselves is actually dangerous, but we kind of nerf Chris in a way. And so Chris ends up in strong. As far as like stats go, Chris has actually a decent amount of HP and a decent amount of attack, and same decent amount of defense, but no magical abilities whatsoever. So I'd say Chris is kind of an all-rounder, but again, it's really more so Chris's skill that puts them at strong. And again, if it weren't for us, they'd be in dangerous. So next up is Susie, and Susie is immediately going into dangerous. So I mean, right from the very beginning, we see that Susie, as early as chapter 1, she is very strong enough to grab Chris and push them into a locker. And she also has a couple of other strength feats. She has sharp dragon teeth. Susie, and this is just all in the light world, this isn't even getting into the dark world. Susie is dangerous both in the light world and in the dark world. She becomes even more dangerous in the dark world because she gets access to Rude Buster, which is a powerful attack and basically the only reason why the fun game can really defeat the Roaring Knight, in my opinion. If we look at Susie's stats right over here, you can see that Susie has above average HP, above average attack, defense is okay, and actually does have a little bit of magic, unlike Chris. So, I mean, pretty much all of Susie's stats are above average. So, whether you look at it from a Dark World perspective with Susie's stats or a Light World perspective, Susie is dangerous, for sure. So, moving on, we're going to go to Noelle. Noelle, I'm going to put Noelle actually... This is going to be controversial, I'm sure. I'm going to put Noelle in okay. So, in the light world, Noelle doesn't really seem to be all that strong. Obviously, she has her antlers. Obviously, that is a weapon in of itself, although we don't know if she knows how to use them. As far as the dark world is concerned, she's actually more of a glass cannon. Her HP is okay, but she by far has the lowest attack of anybody, of any of the playable characters, by far the lowest attack. She also has the lowest defense as well. Now, on the bright side, her magic stat actually is decently good. I'll give it that. And so she's really a glass cannon of sorts. So, But again, you know, also as far as her magic goes, she has access to, I believe it's called Sleep Mist, so she can put like an entire party of enemies out. Obviously, she has Ice Shock, so she can deal damage with that as well. So Noelle really is more of a glass cannon. I know some of you are thinking, oh no, Noelle's like really strong, but what you have to remember is in like the weird route, which a lot of people are thinking of when they think of Noelle being strong. In the weird route, it's not that Noelle is strong. It's that Noelle gets access to really good items. Think of like the Freeze Ring and think of like the Thorn Ring. These are really powerful items, and in a sense, Noelle, in my opinion, is kind of carried by these items. If you remove these items, Noelle is just a decent glass cannon. But again, definitely outclassed by both Chris and Susie. So, again, that might be controversial, but. All right, next up is Birdly, who is not a player character. And Birdly is going to go into Dangerous. Yeah, Birdly's attacks, they're, I've already ranked Birdly. I've already ranked Birdly as a boss. I dropped my juice for a second, but Birdly's already been ranked as a boss. But just because why not? I'll go ahead and rank him here as well. Again, his attacks are very strong. They can be very hard to dodge. Birdly appears to don some sort of armor in the Dark World, which I'm assuming kind of raises his defense. He doesn't go out very quickly. You have to deal a good amount of damage if you're going the non-pacifist route. So I would definitely say he's dangerous. Not to mention, in the Dark World, determination, plays a pretty key role, obviously. That's how the Dark Fountains are made. And Birdly is determined to be as annoying as he possibly can. And that level of determination is dangerous. So next up we have Undyne. And we do see a little bit of what Undyne can do. And from the little bit that we see, I actually would put Undyne in strong. She's able to muster up like an entire flurry of spears, not unlike her Undertale counterpart. She also dons some sort of like armor of sorts too. So just from what we see, she appears to be really strong. Now obviously she's kidnapped by the Roaring Knight, but that doesn't really mean much in my opinion because it's the Roaring Knight. So I mean, like right before this happens, the Roaring Knight just wipes out the party. So, that's not saying much. So I'd actually say Undyne goes in strong. Ralsei. Is it Ralsei? Is it Ralsei? I always forget. This is a tricky one. I'm kind of leaning between okay and strong. I'm actually going to put Ralsei in okay. And it's actually so for one reason. So in Deltarune, there are a lot of healing items. Now Ralsei is going to be playing mostly the role of healer. But with all the healing items, it makes Ralsei a little bit redundant. Doesn't mean the healing's not useful, because it definitely is. But the healing items does make Ralsei's healing somewhat redundant. Add that to the fact that Ralsei, look at Ralsei's HP. By far even lower than Noelle's actually. So Ralsei is also kind of squishy. There's that too. And while Ralsei has better attack than Noelle, that's not saying much. It's still lower than Chris's and definitely much lower than Susie's. So, although again, Ralsei does have good magic. So, again, more of like a specialized healer role is what Ralsei's going to be doing primarily. But because healing items are so abundant, let's say healing items were like much, much scarcer in Deltarune. I'm not even saying they should be, but let's say that they were. If that were the case, then Ralsei would jump on up to strong. But again, healing items, they're easy to find. You can fill your inventory with them. And so Ralsei ends up being okay. Although I actually would say Ralsei is better than Noelle, personally. Next up is Lancer. I'd say Lancer's actually pretty strong. Lancer can summon what seems to be an infinite amount of projectiles. Lancer's also small and very energetic, which means Lancer could, be hard to hit if you really want it to be. So yeah, I'd say Lancer maybe at the bottom of strong, but Lancer's feats to me are just good enough to inch his way into strong. All right, Ruden. Yeah, Ruden's gonna go into. Honestly, Ruden's gonna go into weak. Ruden's actually not that tough and not that hard to beat. All right, next up is Hathy. And yeah, Hathy also, I would say, is weak. More of a support enemy more than anything. And I've already gone through you and the boss thing. So, these guys, again, I would call them weak. It's not too hard to dodge their attack patterns. The pawn man. They're actually, I put them below Noel, but they're actually okay. Honestly, they're not too bad. At moments their bullet patterns can be kind of tricky. Same goes for this enemy. At times their bullet patterns can be kind of tricky as well. And I already went through Clover. And this is an enemy that you don't fight, but you more so kind of run away from. And I'm actually going to put them at the tail end of strong. Because they're able to fly about pretty quickly while spitting projectiles. I mean, again, you don't actually formally fight them. You more so run away from them. And so I think that's enough to put them at like the end of strong. Yeah, I'd say this one, their attack patterns, they're okay. Maybe a little bit tricky the first time you deal with them, but it's not too bad once you get used to it. This is another enemy that's more of like a hazard. And I'll put them in weak. I mean, they move in like a set pattern. It shouldn't be too hard to dodge them. Rune Ranger. Yeah, Rune Ranger is definitely tougher. I would put Rune Ranger probably right here. Head Hathy. No, I'd still put Head Hathy. I mean, stronger than these guys, but that's not saying much. Already gone through rules. Already went through the king. Oh yeah, this one Ruden that Susie thrashes and throws him in the trash. Bottom of week, bottom tier trash. Literally in a trash can. So alright, this this one darkner that traps people is going into weak. Their abilities are kind of unknown, but they don't, it seems like all they do is just kind of sit there and act as a cage, and depending on which one, you can actually just walk out of the cage. So definitely weak. All right, I'm actually going to put this darkner in strong. Personally, the attack that they use is kind of random. It's like a roll of a die. And at least personally, depending on what they roll and the randomness, I actually kind of struggle with their attacks quite a bit. So I'd say bottom of. Actually, I'm going to put them above the bird right there, but not above Lancer. Not above Lancer. All right, next up is Werewire. And I'm going to put Werewire in okay. Werewire can actually be pretty tricky. I mean, as you fight more of them, it gets easier. But, even still, you might find yourself getting grazed or damaged here and there by a couple of their attacks. And then there's Werewire. I'm actually definitely going to put Werewire in strong. Werewire, actually, even over Lancer, honestly. Werewire is considerably tougher than their weaker counterpart. So, and consistently, every time I replay Chapter 2 and fight this enemy, I always get damaged a couple of times. I've never died to this enemy, but I've come pretty close. Even once I know what the attack patterns are going to be, just the speed and just the intensity that they put out their bullet patterns, it's surprisingly tricky. So, definitely in strong. task. Task is going to go in at the bottom of okay. Task can be a little bit tricky, but overall not too bad. Newbert. Well, I had to put Newbert up here. Newbert is dangerous not because of Newbert's offensive ability, which is non-existent, but Newbert is just so popular. That popularity is so dangerous. I mean, you don't want to get jumped in like the wrong side of the dark world because Newbert because you upset Newbert. So just for popularity's sake, Newbert is dangerous. Taskmaster. I don't remember if I did Taskmaster in the other video, but if I didn't, Taskmaster, definitely going in either top of strong or bottom of dangerous. I'll say top of strong. And yeah, I'll say top of strong. Task manager. Is it manager? Is it master? I forget which one. I think it's task manager. That would make more sense as far as the reference goes. Actually, a lot of their bullet patterns are considerably difficult to deal with, truth be told. I usually avoid it by passing the quiz, but I've seen people who have not passed the quiz, and man, a lot of those attacks are really strong. So definitely in strong. Feels like I maybe should put Task Manager at the bottom of Dangers, but for now, top of strong is alright. I believe this enemy is called Raccoon. And they're okay. They're alright. I'm going to put them like right here. They're alright. Not really too hard to deal with. I'm also going to put, definitely higher than, yeah, actually, no, like right here is good. This is an enemy, at least for me, the longer the fight goes, the harder, some of their specific bullet attack patterns is. There's the one attack pattern where the truck goes up, and then as one truck is going up, another one comes up, and it's like skittering out of control. I guess whoever's driving it is like, I don't know, they're having a seizure or something, but that, I really struggle to not get hit by that particular pattern. So otherwise, they're pretty easy to deal with. They're not too bad, so they're okay. I think I did these guys. I don't remember if I did this trio. Pretty sure I did. But if I didn't, they would go in strong just to get that out of the way. This enemy is definitely going into weak. They're not that hard to deal with. Their attack bullet patterns really aren't that difficult. I remember the first time I saw this enemy, I was like, oh man, they look kind of strange. This might be a tough battle, and then it wasn't. So definitely on the weaker end, I would say. All right, and then mouse. I actually put. Right here. I actually put mouse right here. There's this one specific attack pattern with the bullets where you're in, the box becomes like this almost like nest of mice. And the mice can come out of, one of like 20 different holes in a random order. And that can be kind of tricky to dodge, even on like, despite how many times I fought this enemy, that still can be kind of tricky, I have to admit, that one specific, So, yeah, I'd say they're okay. Yeah, I'd put these guys at, about right here is good. Yeah, they're okay. Have a couple of attacks that can kind of sneak up on you, but again, they're not too bad. Oh. All right. Yeah, actually. Yeah. I'm gonna put this enemy at the bottom of strong. Their attacks, they're just harder versions of Mouse's attacks, and A lot of their attacks, they seem like they're easy to dodge, and then they're not, and you get hit. Or, it's easy. Their attacks are easy to dodge, but the speed at which they come and hit you is pretty difficult to deal with. And canonically, the Fun Gang actually can't beat this boss. The boss spins out of control, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, they're definitely, I might even be selling them short, but definitely strong, that's for sure. Alright, the annoying dog is dangerous. You saw the chaos that the annoying dog unleashed upon Queen's Mansion. The mansion will never recover. You've seen what the dog can do with stilts on Chapter 4. A dog that can use stilts, that's terrifying. In fact, the top of dangerous. The annoying dog is very dangerous. Do not engage the dog. If you have bacon, just leave it on the ground and leave. Alright, these are more like obstacles when you are dealing with the spam to Neo business. Actually, I'm putting them pretty low. They're actually not hard to deal with. You can just walk straight and ignore them. Just don't, just run straight, and that's pretty much all you need to do, if I'm not mistaken. I've been hit by them once, and that's because I was curious. These little platter enemies. So they're kind of, honestly, in a sense, almost identical to this enemy right here. So I'm going to put them, right next to each other. The Peepus, or is it Pepus? Not really sure. I mean, pretty much you just don't want to engage with them if you can help it. Dangerous. Very, very dangerous, which may be why Spamton is so fond of them. Alright, this enemy is more of a obstacle that kind of spits bullets at you, but doesn't move around. So, they really rely on strength and numbers. I'm going to put them like right here. Because at least Rudin can chase you around. Alright, next up is this enemy. Whoops. This enemy, I'd say, is pretty much a stronger version of this other enemy. I'm going to put them... No, not that high. It's too high. Like right here. Definitely not stronger than Noelle or Ralsei. For people who thought I sold these two characters short, as you can see here, they rank higher than a lot of other characters. So it's not that they're weak. They're just, there's a lot of, there are characters who I would argue are stronger, but at the same time, the game's not fully, there are more chapters to come out. Next chapter, these two could just blow up and prove me wrong within the first 3 minutes. So, next up, the Shadow Guy, Darkner. This guy actually is not that hard to deal with. Definitely not weak. I'd say somewhere like right here. They're okay. This enemy. Kind of the same thing. This enemy is like okay. Not too tricky. Your first time fighting them, obviously there's that novelty of them catching you off guard. But once that's out of the way, they're not too bad at all. Those two are pretty much bosses. I don't remember if I reviewed them or not. I think I did. Well, actually, no, they have their own separate fight. I don't remember if I reviewed them. I'm going to review these two together just in case. They're technically more of a boss, but they're definitely going in strong. I'm not going to bother, exactly putting them where they are in strong. And in fact, together, when they're not messing around and arguing, they might be in dangerous, but I think I may have done them already. I know I did you already. And I'm not going to do you on your own because you're summoned by ERAM. And again, yeah. Alright, definitely going in. Somehow worse than trash. Alright, now we're getting into some of the really tough enemies. This Chapter 4 enemy. Yeah, this enemy is really strong. I'd say definitely stronger than Lancer. Not quite as strong as Where Wire. I think it's called Gui or Gi or... I always struggle to pronounce some of the names, but... Alright, this enemy is also lower end of strong. If you can not wake this enemy up, then they're pretty easy to deal with, but otherwise they're pretty tough. Yeah, this one is definitely tough. I'd actually say above both of them. Yeah, like right here. I think a fight with Undyne would be tougher than one of these Darkners, but still. Alright, this one is going to go... yeah, like right about here. Sounds good. Really not that strong. Really not that strong. Especially once you get their attack patterns down. Really not that strong. Definitely not weak. I wouldn't go that far. But definitely not strong. Alright, I'm going to put this enemy in... like right here. Yeah, this enemy can actually, this enemy has a couple of attacks that can definitely sneak up on you if you're not careful. I've definitely been hit by a couple of those bell attacks and, telling myself, oh yeah, I'm not going to get hit by it. I dodged the first one, dodged the second one, then the third one sneaks up on me. So, ooh, Wingblade. For me personally, at least, Wingblade can be actually surprisingly tricky at times. And actually, the same goes for this enemy. This enemy can also be surprisingly tricky at times. Actually, put him like right there. Yeah, it can be surprisingly tricky. I know I didn't go over this enemy for sure. Personally, I mean, they're a boss, so it's not surprising, but dangerous. Yeah, this is an enemy that's not afraid to play dirty, not afraid to fight you in the dark. I mean, again, they're like a little mini boss, so they're definitely tricky. I died a couple times with this one, if I'm not mistaken. And this is just an obstacle, and an obstacle that you can actually take out pretty easily. So, yeah, right there. Well, actually. To order that properly. Ooh, this enemy. Yeah, I'd say somewhere like right here. Tougher than you might think. Definitely tougher than you might think. Not to mention the creepy, ambiance and atmosphere when you fight this. I'm assuming Darkner, right? And I will not be going over the mics at this time because 1, they are bosses, and 2, now they owe me money. So until I get paid, I'm cutting them out the video. So with that being said, that actually is the end of the video. Hopefully I'm not forgetting anybody. Believe I covered everybody. So this right here is my power ranking tier list. Ranking who is weak, who is okay, who is strong in combat, and these 6 right here are the dangerous ones. Gotta watch out for them. They'll sneak up on you. Oh, I also forgot one more thing when it comes to Bertley. I can see somebody saying, why is Bertley so high? He should be in strong. One more thing I forgot, actually. Bertley can fly. Bertley is literally shown to be able to fly, like multiple times. He can fly. So that alone gives him a pretty huge mobile advantage, being able to fly to and from wherever he pleases. So, all right, but enough simping for Bertley aside. That's going to be the end of the video. So, again, I'm going to, once again, briefly just mention, do have a Kickstarter. Copy of the game costs $1. Support it if you care to. If not, that's fine too. It's got 8 days to go, 12 backers. And so with all that being said, I'm going to wrap the video up. And so I wish you a good day. I wish you a good life. And more than anything, stay safe. Oh, and one more thing. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe. And, if you have certain opinions, feel free to comment. I'd love to hear your opinions, even if you disagree with me. All right. I will see you in another video. Hopefully. Bye-bye.